Hey guys, how's it going? Preparing here. Now, a lot of you have requested that I make videos about all the different builds that I've tried and had mild success with in Path of Exile. And the main reason why I haven't done this is because these builds are subject to change. Some of them may not be the same a week from now, a month from now, and the other part is that I don't truly know how effective they are. I don't yet know what spec I will play. I kind of know what character I want to play. I kind of want to play a Templar because of the flexibility, but I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it. So I've been playing a lot of different things, trying to understand the game itself, the system, what's good, what's not, and kind of understanding the macro picture before I get into the fine details of exactly what I want to make. But in any case, I want to show you guys pretty much my favorite character that I have made so far on the beta, and I want you guys to kind of understand the objective points that I make in this kind of video, what it takes to really make a build, and how you can get them to be successful, and what to look for, and how to get started, from the start all the way to the finish. So let me show you guys my character here. So this is the passive skill tree in Path of Exile, and this is what I've gone with. I've started with the Templar, and I've gotten a lot of these elemental damage nodes. I've gotten some armor. I'm working my way to more armor, and I have a lot of life nodes, but because I don't have that much base life, my life pool is very small. I did not choose the life reward for the Bandit's quest, and in retrospect, I should have. Now, when it comes to making a character, on the skill tree, there's really only two important things. The main is that you have enough damage, but that's very easy to accomplish. A lot of people go way overboard with the damage in this game, but the damage is made up from higher levels. If your character is really high level, if you have like 20 quality gems and really good gear, you need pretty much no damage passives from the tree to be effective in combat, even in the most DPS intensive situations. Truth is, you don't need damage in this game. Getting a little bit more doesn't hurt if it's convenient, but you should not go out of your way for it. And the second thing is you need survivability. There's really two ways to build survivability on a character, but to each there's two parts. The first part is choosing some kind of defense mechanism. So you want to have a good amount of armor, or a good amount of evasion, or you want a good amount of bonus energy shield to add to your life total if you can't get either of the first two, just in case you get hit. So let's take a look how that's possible. In the Templar tree, there's a lot of these armor energy shield nodes, and that's pretty effective because Templars use armor energy shield. The Marauder uses largely armor. The Duelist is armor evasion. The Ranger is evasion. The Shadow is evasion energy shield, and the Witch is energy shield. So there's always some kind of available defensive mechanism near your character tree, and that's generally some points that you want to invest in, unless you're confident with your unusual shift of the spec that may not require it. So there's that. You just keep that in mind. But the most important thing is that you have enough buffer. So in this game, you're going to get hit. You've seen me get one-shotted by Brutus, and I had over 2,000 life, and that is not enough. When it comes to getting your character built based on life, you can do that, but you're going to need like a minimum life percentage of like 130 or so. 130% life from your passive tree is really what I recommend as a bare minimum. That doesn't mean like all your characters should have 130, then you should go to all damage nodes. It does not mean that at all. Typically, you'd want to go with more if you can, but some builds make up for it because they have very large keystones. For instance, a lot of people like to get Unwavering Stance, can't be stunned, lowers your evasion to 0, but this Iron Reflex's talent converts your evasion to armor, so you can get a lot of bonus armor by combining these two talents. You can't be stunned. That's some kind of added survivability, so maybe you don't need as much hit points if you do it this way. So if you were going to get these talents, you could have a little bit less than 180, 150 or so maybe, but you got to make up for it in some kind of survivability kind of way rather than a damage kind of way. Now the other thing is, you can make a character that's purely based on energy shield if you don't want to do life. But if you're going to do this, you really should look at Chaos Inoculation. There are some builds that have minimum life, like, you know, maybe a K and a half, and then a lot of energy shield on top, but it's really not optimized. Optimized is you get a lot of life or you get a lot of energy shield. That's really the best way to do it. Like I said, there are some exceptions, but you know, that's a little bit more advanced stuff that hasn't really been proven quite so effective as the two options that I have mentioned. So with that in mind, you start your character tree based on which class you select. So as the Templar, I started in this section, and you know, for the most part, I'm getting all the convenient damage nodes, but I always want to make sure that they're right near all the life nodes. They're right near the armor nodes when I want them later, and they're near other very niche abilities. Now, when it comes to figuring out the abilities, that's really where you should start your spec. I mentioned the basics just now, but it really comes down to starting your character off with the abilities that you want to use. Now, because it's a beta, because you're just kind of learning, you can just kind of make a character and do whatever you want with it. But to make a real character, when you want to think up a new character, when you realize the mechanics, you want to start from the skills. And when it comes to the skills, it kind of has to be effective, and you kind of need to keep in mind how things stack in this game. So the most important thing is most of the shit stacks additively. So for instance, if I have 8% elemental damage, and let's say I get 6% lightning damage, and let's say I get 10% spell damage, okay? So if I cast a lightning-based spell that has a base damage of 100, it'll be 100 times 1 plus 0.1 plus 0.8 plus 0.6. It's all going to add up in one block, then multiply the first. That's why I mentioned at the beginning of the video here, you really don't need that much damage, because it's all going to add up, and you can get a lot of the additive bonuses through skills and items at high level. You don't really need that many passives. It's nice to have the passives if they're convenient, but they are not necessary in any case. So you have the spell itself multiplied by the total sum of the bonuses that affect the spell. And then you have multiplier bonuses, such as Pain Attunement as a passive. Most of the multiplier bonuses are actually in the form of items or skills, but in this case it is a passive, 30% more spell damage when low on life. That is the operative word. When you see something that says increased or decreased, that goes in the plus or minus bracket of the modifier. When you see something called more or less, that goes in a separate modifier that multiplies all at once. So what does that mean? Well, it means that when I use something like weapon elemental damage, it says 76% more weapon elemental damage. That's going to take all the elemental damage that I do with my original attack, all of it, and then apply the additional and subtraction modifier. And it's going to take all of that, then multiply it by 1.76. So the more word is very crucial to figuring out how you want to make your skills effective. And as a base, I got started with this character with one thing in mind. I wanted to use Lightning Arrow with multiple projectiles, with chain, so the multiple projectiles, you know, then kind of like just a massive fuckfest of arrows. And I wanted to stack elemental damage, so then that's why I'm using weapon elemental damage. But the basis is these three skills. The reason I chose Lightning Arrow is because Lightning Arrow, most people leave it at a very low level and just use it as a physical conversion tool. But I wanted to get it to a really high level so I can shock the targets. As you level Lightning Arrow, you get a base chance to shock targets on hit with lightning damage. The really interesting thing is, if you stack enough of this passive shock bonus, you don't actually need to get critical hits on your character. You can shock the target, which is normally caused by dealing a critical hit with lightning damage. Instead, you can work on your defenses, get Resolute Technique, your hits can't be evaded, so you can never miss, and it says you can never get crits. But I still can shock. I can shock because I have a leveled up Lightning Arrow, and I have static blows. So 10% chance to shock on hit with lightning damage, 10% chance to shock on hit with lightning damage, and my Lightning Arrow, which will soon be leveled probably to about level 14, and it's going to be about a 40% chance to shock on hit with lightning damage. So I'm going to have like 60% chance to shock with my Lightning Arrow that hits tons of times. Compare that to most like other specs, like it's almost impossible to get a 60% crit with any lightning spell without having an additive shock modifier to it. So this is a very effective way of getting shock, and the strange thing is that it doesn't require crits. What it does require is a shitload of mana See, my lightning arrow costs 95 mana, and I'm not even close to finish leveling it. And it also requires that you have a lot of elemental damage on your gear. So for instance, you see the gloves add 3 to 28 lightning damage. It seems really lackluster, but all this stuff adds up because I have a lot of those elemental damage passives, and then I multiply all of that by weapon elemental damage and a few other things that I'll show you. So how did I accomplish this? You can see on my bar I don't have any mana pots, but I don't even have that much mana. So how does this work? The reason it works is I chose this talent called Eldritch Battery, so it converts all energy shield into mana. So I stack quite a bit of energy shield from my auras. And the way I do that is I take things like armor and energy shield, which increase my energy shield when I have it, and then I have buff effect, increase the effect of buffs on you by a total of 30%. So when I cast something like Discipline, which gives me 344 energy shield, it instead gives me 344 times 1.3 because of the buff effect, and then multiplies that by the energy shield modifiers that I gained from my energy shield passives as well as my high intellect. As you can see, 5 intellect gives you 1% energy shield. So my mana from 664, when I cast Discipline, I get 1589 mana, which is a ridiculous amount of mana. And as such, my mana regen is pretty high, but it's also modified by the fact that I'm using Clarity. So I'm using Clarity, I'm using Grace, I'm using Wrath because I want more elemental damage, I'm using Anger. These are actually over-leveled, so I find this character a little bit shoddy. And that's 5 auras, but I still have a lot of mana left, so what I use is Purity. Purity because it gives me maximum resist. Eventually, Purity is going to give me 4% of my maximum resist, which should be modified by my buff talent as well. So my final resists in the end would be 85. This is important because the main complications that I saw with this character were in terms of reflect elemental damage mobs. But when you're facing reflect elemental damage mobs, they're going to reflect back the same damage that you deal to them. So if I deal, lightning, cold, and fire, and my lightning, cold, and fire resists are all at 85, I'm not really going to take that much damage. So that's kind of the idea. You can also see I have quite a bit of mana left, and in fact, my character doesn't even use, see I have Wrath, I have Anger, doesn't even use all of its auras with reduced mana cost. Eventually, once I get this character another 10 or so levels, and I get, better assortment of linked items, I can actually use another aura. I can use a 7th aura, and the one that I plan to use is, let me see it here, Determination. You and nearby allies gain a certain percentage more armor. So being the operative word, what that's going to do is it's going to multiply all my existing armor by that multiplier. It's going to give me a shitload of armor. Right now I have pretty much no armor because my gear sucks. But, I mean, you see my helmet has 100 armor, my armor has 700 armor. A helmet can have well over 1,000, an armor can have well over 2,000. Gloves can have like I don't even know if they can reach 1,000, but 1,000 is a little bit better than 0. And same for the boots. About 1,000, a little bit better than 0. So my gear is absolute garbage. But in the end, this character will have an unbelievable amount of armor. And because of that, it's going to be able to tank damage from physical sources. And because I'm going to have 85 auras, it's going to take like no damage from elemental sources as well. It's going to be a very, very strong, high-level character. That's how I planned it out. And all these defenses that I'm stacking now, it's kind of delayed. Because typically what you want to do is you want to stack defenses a little bit early, at least when it comes to life. But I made it all the way through, and largely that's because I've been using shit like Decoy Totem and a few other things. Let me show you how this build works, just so you can see that it works. This is Merciless Fell Shrine. I would show you a map, but I don't really have that many maps. So my lightning arrow here, although it costs 95 mana, my mana regen is 82.9 per second, and that'll only go way up as I level up. So what I do is I use one lightning arrow, and it chains between the mobs like crazy and shocks them like crazy, so they take additional damage, and it's very, very easy. Pick up those boots, Determination gem levels. Very, very, very strong character. When I run into a pack of mobs that are abnormally fast, what I can do is I can cast a Decoy Totem. Right now, I only have points in Totem Life, but eventually I can get a second Totem if I want. I like Totem Life because I don't have to cast it as much. It kind of withstands a few hits from some of the mobs, and I'm pretty happy with it right now. But, I might try to spice up the build. Like I said, the build is not finished. It's not anywhere near what I want it to be, but it is very, very enjoyable. The character demolishes packs. with pretty much one spray of arrows. Like the pack size, the bigger it is, the more damage they take. When it comes to a target that is alone, lightning arrow will not be very effective. So what I use is I use elemental hit, and I can use elemental weakness if I want to just kill it a little bit faster. Yeah, just kill that on 2 hits. Very, very easy stuff. This one has physical reflect. I don't really do physical damage. Very, very easy. This character is a very, very strong character that I really hope to eventually get a few more levels on, and kind of test out my new theories about stacking more auras, getting better gear, stacking armor, and seeing how that plays out. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is how to build up your character from scratch. So over here I have like a typical Templar spec, and I'll start it out just with getting the melee talents. This is going to be kind of like a lightning strike sweep Templar, stacking elemental damage. So you're going to want to have hatred aura, you're going to want to have added fire damage because you're getting all these additional damage types. And you can use lightning strike, and the reason I'm getting Resolute Technique is just to avoid dex. I think if you're playing melee, unless you're playing a dex-based melee, you really should get Resolute Technique in every case. And at the beginning, you can see that I got all those life nodes. So getting life at the beginning is really crucial to staying alive on a hardcore character, especially if you're going to race with it. And you just want to always get life as you progress. But at the start, it's very, very important to get all life nodes near your starting character tree. In this case, I got the static blows as well, just because for a single target with this kind of build, Lightning Strike will be the most powerful ability, and you're going to want to get some shock stacks every now and then. You see over there, I got the maximum resist, but I got it after I got the resist node, because typically the maximum resist is not really going to play into effect unless your resistances are capped. And typically when you're leveling up, because your gear is really crappy, your resists are typically not going to be capped without the help, without severe help from passives. As you can see, this is about, probably early 40s. You can start getting some damage if you want, just because you got so much hit points already. You can do a little bit more damage if you want. You can push it a little bit, but it's all optional, to be honest. Over here, I'm rushing to Unwavering Stance because getting stunned as a melee character is really a pain in the ass. Even though you have a lot of life, it's very unusual that you get stunned. Getting stunned in a bad moment on hardcore can lead to death. Now, when it comes to keeping your character very high life, very high regen, very high armor, all of what I've said, obviously it's not necessary when it comes to playing softcore, but in the end it really helps. If you play hardcore, you don't want to die, you want to build exactly like this. But if you're playing softcore, you really want to avoid those unusual deaths, because if you die here and there once in a while, you're still going to lose a lot of experience. You lose a lot of experience, a lot of time if you end up dying in this game, and you really don't want to do that, even if you're playing on softcore. And that's really about it. I hope you guys decide to look into the game. If you want to try to make your own build, I highly recommend that you use resources like the wiki page on Path of Exile. Learn what all the skills are. Think about how you want to use them together, and then come up with a build, come up with a class, and then in the end, fine-tune it, practice it, optimize it, move a few skills around, try a few unusual things, see what works, see what doesn't, and hopefully when open beta comes out, you can have a pretty strong, unique character of your own. Hope you guys learned something today. See you guys tomorrow.